everyone, and welcome to the Balanced Bodies Blueprint. I am your host, Vinny Russo.
And I'm your co-host, Dr. Eryn Stansfield.
And we're shifting gears from all the conventional fitness narrative you hear on most fitness podcasts, as our main emphasis lies in preventative healthcare, adopting a holistic approach to nutrition, and challenging the traditional views on various fitness topics.
Our mission with this podcast is to provide you with the information you need to achieve optimal health.
And on today's podcast, we have a very special guest today. Her name is Dr. Christle Guevarra. Dr. Christle, Dr. C, thank you so much for joining us on the Balanced Bodies Blueprint.
Thank you so much for having me. Yes, I am a family medicine, sports medicine physician. I mainly do primary care. And for pretty much my entire life, I have struggled with my weight in some capacity. And it wasn't until these GLP-1 medications came out that it was sort of like the final thing. It was the one thing that I just for years couldn't figure out, like, what is wrong with me. And yeah, I'm here to tell my story.
That's great. Yeah. And that's a perfect lead in to what we want to talk to today, because this is going to be more of a personal episode.
Yeah.
And I know, so Eryn, I saw a couple of your posts, but Eryn was like, hey, like, I really like this personal story that she has. I think it'd be great, especially with how prevalent GLPs are now. We got to get her on and do it. And I started listening to some of your stories. I'm like, this is pretty inspiring. So yeah, this is going to be a great episode. We look forward to it.
Yeah, I think it's kind of nice to see a physician who actually is using some of these medications who can really relate to patients, right? I want to know your story, and I want to start at the beginning, like the
Yeah.
very, very
Oh,
beginning.
God.
I want to know how you even grew up, how you got into medicine. Like, start at the very beginning of your story, because I think that's relevant. I think, why'd you go into medicine in the first place? And then we'll delve deeper into some of the other body habitus stuff.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it took me way back. So I grew up in the Bay Area, California, child of the 80s and 90s, and I always liked math, science, and food very early on. From as young as I can remember, my hunger was always very prevalent. I grew up, my grandmother mostly raised me for a couple of years while both my parents worked a lot. So, and I didn't go to preschool. So I, just played at home. And I just remember watching a lot of public television, and I remember eating a lot of snacks with my grandma. And that's kind of my earliest memories was I just had this appetite and I really loved to learn.
Yeah. Well, an appetite for good food and learning. That's awesome.
All food was great food in my book. So I was definitely a member of the Clean Plate Club. And I had a next door neighbor who we were about actually similar height, and she was always somewhere between 20 and 40 pounds lighter than me. So
Oh, really?
from very early on, I noticed, like, not that it was a bad thing, but I just noticed, like, we were different. We looked different.
Different.
Yeah.
Were your parents or maybe grandparents, were they, I know some parents are like, you have to clean your plate. Were they like that? Or you just naturally were like, I'm going to finish my food?
I don't really remember my parents per se saying that. I do remember my next door neighbor's mom saying that when she would invite me over to eat, and I would just completely clean the plate. And she just, commented that it was such a good thing because her daughter struggled with finishing her food. And so, like, I was sort of seen as like the model child of, you should do this. But also we looked different, right? Like, I was, heavier than she was. So I didn't quite know what to make of it, but I just knew that, like, there was definite differences there, and people were commenting on it. I feel like because of my weight growing up, at least in my immediate and, like, secondary family, that I was very self-conscious about my appetite and how much I was eating.
Did, as you entered like the school and, maybe elementary, junior high, high school, did that become more of an issue? Like, were you like very aware of this? Like, walk us through what that was like and when you kind of realized, you know, I might be struggling with this, or there's a difference.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember first grade was definitely like the kind of when the event started to fold out that like, oh, not only am I different, but I'm fat and it's not necessarily seen as a good thing. So yeah, I
First
remember
grade. Wow.
Yeah.
That's really
yeah.
young.
Yeah, also discovered how much I can fire back. So one classmate, and we're good. Years later, we're on good terms. So I remember he said to me, he was making fun of me for being fat, and I just remember looking at him, and I knew he was struggling with reading at the time, and I looked at him, and I said, "Well, at least I can read,"
Mm.
and like with just fire right because I'm like, you're gonna make fun of me, I'm gonna
Yeah.
make fun of
Yeah,
you,
I'm gonna,
and
yeah.
Mrs. Hart grabbed me by the arm, dragged me out of that classroom, and started yelling at me. And I just remember thinking, well, wait, he made fun of me for being fat. Like,
Right.
why can't I like, make fun
Yeah.
of him for something that's not so great?
Yeah.
So,
Right.
yeah, no, I remember, and she wasn't hearing any of it. And I just remember thinking, like, oh, so it's okay to make fun of somebody for being fat, and I'm fat. And so that was the lesson I kind of took with it. And so, but that was always been my shield, sort of, I might be overweight right now, but I'm going to make up for it by being, smart.
Smarter than you. Yeah.
I'm gonna be
Yeah.
the smart Asian girl. I'm gonna get straight A's, and that's gonna be my like shtick for the rest of my life, I guess.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
gotta say, like being that aware at such a young age, and then like even with like that little lesson, you could call it, right, where you got scolded and the other kid didn't, and you're like, oh, okay, so I guess it's okay to make fun of people based on their weight. Like to to have all that awareness at that young of an age, did that because it speaks to your intelligence, but I want to know, did that lead into, as you grew up being that aware, did that lead into anything which maybe led into body dysmorphia or
Oh.
eating disorder or anything like that, that as you went to middle school and then eventually into high school?
Yeah, I don't know if it was necessarily a full-blown, diagnosed eating disorder, but I definitely did, diets,
Hmm.
exercise. Like I loved playing sports, and that for whatever reason, I'm glad I did that. It was just sort of seen as different. It wasn't until high school that I took sports to the extreme and really kind of integrated all of that. But I remember doing just in elementary school and middle school doing extra cardio, the VHS tapes to try and lose weight. The
That's nuts to me because like that's a young age to even be that aware of what's going on. Like I remember not even I remember watching cartoons and eating cereal too. And and not even like thinking so this epiphany that you had at such a young age probably happened for somebody like myself probably in my late 20s
Oh
is
wow.
yeah. So like I was so body unaware.
Yeah, but I also think that you guys
Yeah.
had two different lifestyles growing up, meaning she dealt with being a little bit overweight where you didn't have that issue. So
Yeah,
it was
and
very
so I'm
different.
just saying like
Yeah.
it's such a difference though. Like
Yeah.
that I think this part is skipped over, right? When we
Hmm.
talk to some of our patients, we don't realize the journey of where this started.
Mhm.
And so for you, I think this journey started so early. Like I can't imagine thinking about working out at that young of an
Yeah,
age.
were you pressured by your parents? Like, did they make comments that you heard and like you took offense to, or no?
I I can't like I'm struggling to remember anything off the top of my head
Mhm.
of like comments directly, and that's just, I might just be super, older and memories are kind of fuzzy, but I do remember eating a lot of chocolate because my dad kept a lot of chocolate, like little snacks in the house. And I remember myself being at a very young age in elementary school, just unable to control myself. Just, I remember sneaking a lot of food because it felt good, not because I was stressed. I can't think like there was no trauma. I just really love the taste of it. Like those little, little chocolates that I now keep in my kitchen, and it's just more than that. But I remember very early on them saying something to me about it, and then asking my dad at some point to hide the chocolate somewhere else or put it out of the pantry,
Yeah.
put it in his car and lock it up so I couldn't get a hold of it. And it became such a huge pain point because he didn't we argued about I remember distinctively arguing about that at various points in my life because he didn't want to accommodate. He was just like, no, I'm gonna keep it here.
So
And
you try to make your environment support what you wanted, and he was like, "No, we're keeping the
no.
chocolates where I can reach them." Yeah.
Yeah. So, and yeah, I wanted them in the car where I couldn't reach them. Because believe me, when we lived in a very small apartment, so there wasn't a whole lot of space to hide stuff. But yeah, I remember wanting to look like Raquel Welch in the 80s and early 90s. And the yeah, just doing a whole, and I didn't discover resistance training until much later in life, around late 20s. So it was a lot of cardio. My first diet that I remember sort of putting myself on, I was like 12. It was a lot of fat-free cottage cheese and fat-free saltines. Was that was it. I was gonna, it was
Sounds
right.
miserable.
It sounds miserable. It does. It was right around when puberty started to hit, and I didn't want my hips to widen. I didn't want like my shape to change, and so that's kind of how I dealt with it.
Do you have an aversion to cottage cheese now?
It kind of goes back and forth. Right now, I'm very picky about what type of like different brands. Some brands are watery
Yeah,
depending on
yeah.
the curd size. So
You're a cottage cheese connoisseur now. You have a certain skill set now.
yeah, there were also other things that I also picked up on. There was a physician, RD, team who had like this book. Forgot what it was called, like the 30-day like reset or something like that. And it was basically like a very early exchange, like get protein in, get, a serving of vegetables, get a serving of fruit. So I remember being in the seventh grade and trying that out, and it seemed to work but I was getting some vegetables in, I was getting some fruit in, I was getting protein in. So it wasn't all bad, but I still viewed it as like, I need to shrink instead of like, I need to, eat like a reasonable person and get my nutrients in.
The mentality behind it was
Yeah.
off, but the
Yeah.
diet was pretty good.
Yeah, I actually dug up a copy from Amazon and kind of perused it a couple months ago. And I was like, actually, this really isn't terrible.
Yeah.
Just my mindset around it was
Was
completely,
bad.
yeah.
Yeah.
So when you started getting into sports, like you said in high school, when you took that full force, did you have, were you still under the mindset of like, I need to still eat lower calories, I need to diet just to look better, even though your performance might suffer?
Oh, yeah. And it did suffer. And I didn't care. I really just didn't care at all. And I played, and then I also realized that volleyball probably wasn't going to be my sport at 4'11".
You can jump really high.
That's impressive, though. Big goals. Big goals.
Yes.
I heard Dr. C has a hell of a bump.
Yeah. And it started to go down. Looking back, man, I wish I would have just picked up a weight and started fueling myself because my serves were terrible. My hits were terrible. Like, I would dive for, those hits and just everything felt much slower.
Did did your parents around this time say anything to you, or, or did they realize what was going on, or was it mostly like, oh no, she's just trying to eat healthier and trying to be active?
Yeah, I think they were working a lot, and so and I always put on the face of everything's
It's
okay.
good.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
of course, you gotta, especially
You
I
gotta
feel
suck it
like,
up and keep going,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
right, and I just feel like that was kind of, yeah, that was my thing. As long as the grades were okay, like all is well,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. Were they born here? No?
No, no, they grew up in the Philippines and then came here when my mom was like 19, my dad was like 21-ish, and then my brother was born, and then 9 years later I came. So I'm the first kid
Yeah.
sort of born here.
So basically, so their culture was a lot different. So them seeing you eat and wanting to eat was probably a good thing to them. And seeing you like having some fat on you was like a healthy thing to where like the Western society, you look at us, in America where moms and like, because I talk to parents with their kids when they're young too, and
Yeah.
it's bad. They're like, no, like they need to diet down. It's like they're growing, you got to feed them or whatever. So there's a different mentality, a different culture here. So do you think that played into them more or less not really support? Like your dad didn't take the chocolates out because he didn't see it as an issue.
He didn't see that as an issue, but I know that looks were very much a thing and body size was still very much a thing,
Okay.
like with the family. So, and grandmas will keep like Asian grandmothers will keep it real. Like when you start putting on weight, they will let you know. Like just
They're very
you're
honest.
yeah, they're very honest in the most
I
brutal
know
way possible.
my grandma's Spanish, but
Yeah.
yes, she let you know exactly what was on her
Yeah.
mind. So tell us how sports evolved into potentially resistance training. Where did that happen for you, and what changed your mindset there?
Oh gosh, resistance training didn't come around until years later. So I, um, was dieting, got to college, and I was so every time I lowered my calories, I just felt like my brain couldn't function. I couldn't focus. Memory was totally shot. So by the time undergraduate came around, I went all in and I was like, you know what, this is not a priority for me. I pretty much went in the opposite direction and just ate whatever I wanted. I started smoking cigarettes. I just picked up, all sorts of, and I stopped exercising completely. So by the time I graduated from undergrad, I was 4'11" and 200 pounds with a pack a day habit.
Wow.
And I went to grad school in Madison, Wisconsin, and realized, hey, I'm not going to survive a long time if I don't make some changes in my life. Like, I'm an adult and here I am, just like, this is not good. I know this is not good. So, this is not sustainable. So, I spent a couple of years rebuilding my habits and tried a bunch of different things as far as exercise go. I finished a half marathon and which was awesome, but then I just felt really sort of deflated emotionally and physically because I did no resistance training like
Mhm.
at all. So I picked up this book called Resistance Training for Runners. And that's what got me into the weight room. And I haven't looked back ever since. I was just sort of, wow, this is awesome. Why haven't I done this
Yeah.
before? And I'm not sure if I really like the running part. Like that was cool, but I like this stuff better.
I will say that going to school in Madison, Wisconsin, and having unlimited availability to cheese curds, that probably didn't help either, did it?
Yeah, they're pretty good. I just for whatever reason the squeaky like the
The
texture part
texture's weird,
it's a little it's like
I love
rubbery.
cheese too.
I love cheese, but like cheese curds I'm like, it's okay, but it's not like baked brie or something like that where
Yeah.
I could pretty much eat the whole meal and
I'm
call
a
it.
big Green Bay fan, and I've been out there a few
Oh,
times. So
nice.
going there and trying the cheese curds, I'm not a fan of them at all, to be honest with
Oh,
you. I like cheese, but that I'm
yeah.
good. I'm good with that.
Did you have a brat?
I did. Yeah. So it's funny because I went there maybe 4 times, and
Yeah.
every time I go, when they hear me talk, it's like a New Jersey accent. So they're like, "Oh, you're not from around here." I'm like, "No." They're like, "Is this your first time here?" And every time I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Oh, get him brats, get him beer, get him this." I'm like, "Yeah, bring it on," because they're so nice.
It's like I'm new here. I'm new.
It's
Just
the first
Right.
time ever. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, "Yeah, get him this." They're so nice. It's just like,
Yeah.
all right, yeah.
hilarious. What did you get your so you went to grad school after undergrad? What did
Yeah.
you get your graduate degree in?
I got a master's degree in chemistry, organic
Oh wow.
chemistry. So
Wow. That's
I,
cool. That's my favorite. That was actually my strength on my MCAT.
oh,
Was
good. Yay.
OChem.
You're not one of those haters because usually everyone's
I
like,
am.
Love
ew. Oh.
I'm a hater.
OChem.
I hated organic chemistry in undergrad.
Yeah. OChem is my jam.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you got a master's degree in organic chemistry, and then what made you decide? Well, first off,
Yeah.
so it sounds like you were making some health conscious choices and you got
Yeah.
into resistance training. I want to hear how you morphed more into that and then how you decide to go to med school.
Oh gosh. How yeah, that's a great question. So I started with literally one thing at a time. And one of the things that I do remember with my lifestyle change, one, I had a fantastic time with quitting smoking. It was cold turkey. The first
Wow.
3 weeks were the worst. Like, that's no big deal. That was always sort of the like with cigarettes, it's, I don't need these to survive.
Mhm.
You need food to survive. So I knew food was going to be the bigger challenge. And the
And how do you
for
quit food? That's scary.
right, like I can't quit food. Dang it. I got to figure out what to do with it. So I just started to play around in the kitchen because all of the stuff that I was eating in undergrad, it was just takeout 24/7. That's, not paying attention to calories, very hyper palatable,
Yep.
stuff. I remember going through an entire day's worth of eating at like somewhere between 4,000 and 4,500 calories. So no, it wasn't a real
God bless.
shocker.
I like your metabolism. Wow.
uh
Hell
shock
of a
is
maintenance.
right. So I'm not surprised that I ended up, at that weight, at that size, with very sedentary daily movement. So it was just, yeah, don't get, takeout snacks. Try and get something resembling a vegetable. Like trying to get my tongue acclimated to vegetables again took about a year because when you smoke, your taste buds completely change. And then when you quit, like you just start craving all sorts of,
Was it the
different
oral
food.
fixation of bringing stuff to your mouth all the time? Did that play a role, or?
That, but also just your taste in general. Like I just felt like I had so much, like I could actually taste my food. And so like just even I didn't need as much seasoning as I did with all the takeout that I was eating in undergrad. So just even something as simple, and this sounds so gross. I would like take like some zucchini and like heat it up on a pan and then slap it between two pieces of bread, put a little bit of mayo, like as a sandwich, like a vegetable sandwich. But like,
You're like,
but
I'm
then
getting my veggies in.
right, but like compared, like I guess the yes, it's now it sounds absolutely disgusting, but like I think about how this is better compared to what I was doing
Yeah.
before.
Right.
So I gotta just this is fine. This is totally fine. This isn't forever. So
Right. Right.
It was a conscious effort to get your vegetables in, no matter how you had to get them
in
in.
any by any means necessary.
Yeah. So how did you decide to go to med school? Like, where was that?
That was in grad school. So I was in a PhD program. I thought I wanted to be an organic chemistry professor. I wanted to, work at a big university, do research, and I really started to rethink my whole game plan when I realized that it's I liked being in the lab, but I wasn't sure I wanted to be in the lab forever. It was pretty lonely. I liked the idea of synthesizing molecules to target something that can help, you know, help heal people, help treat. I've done diabetes research, cancer research, but I just felt like I'd like to be in a different spot where I'm actually working with people, actually helping them manage their health, helping them, manage their disease and hopefully getting them healthier as well. And so I went to my advisor at the time and told him that I am really having some second thoughts about this PhD program. I'm not quite sure. Like, I really think either going to med school, going to PA school, becoming a nurse, because, you can still help people,
Mhm.
in
Absolutely.
very many different ways in the healthcare field. And he kind of looked at me and said, in the 2 years that I've known you, I think, you could go a bunch of different ways and I think you're going to do well. I think if you decide to go any other route other than becoming a physician, I think you will regret it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look and explore all of my options, but the thank you. Because there is that why that there is an added responsibility. There you are making a lot of, you're kind of the decision maker on a lot of things. You're taking feedback from people in the healthcare team, but at the end of the day, it's the relationship between you and that patient. So after a couple of years, because I really felt guilty for leaving. I felt like I had worked my way, through undergrad, got all these awards, got all these research fellowship opportunities, and now I'm here, and now I've decided that this isn't what I wanted. Like I just felt like a big failure at the time.
Yeah, I can see
Um,
that. Like,
so
I
yeah,
had a similar experience.
yeah, being like in certain programs, I talked to Joe about this, Dr. Zundell.
yeah,
Being in certain programs, it depends. Like, if you're like, this isn't really for me, and I've got to switch gears.
yeah,
Sometimes it can feel like you're letting, your program director down,
yeah,
or like the people around you, even your fellow residents that are working with you. And so, but I get it. You at the end of the day, you have to fulfill your own purpose, and you're the one that's gonna, be there showing up every day, fulfilling that purpose, and nobody else can do it for you. So you got to do what's best, what matches you the best.
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's cool. So you went to medical school. Did you continue resistance training during this time, or um, did you get more into resistance training, or were you just kind of,
Trying to maintain.
yeah, trying to maintain?
Not hitting PRs every day.
Yeah, like I can't imagine. I didn't start working out until I was done with medical school. I think it was a coping mechanism.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
started with cardio too. I didn't get into resistance training till way later.
yeah.
But it was actually running. And so did you maintain that during med school?
Yeah, it was the constant. There was the one constant I had in my career. I think there was only one period in medical training where I took a couple months off, only because of some chronic nagging injuries, and fellowship finally got to me along with COVID. Having to work during that pandemic, but
Yeah.
it was like the place where it was a coping mechanism. It was a, just actually, it was a lot about a coping mechanism. It was a place for me to escape
That's what it
everything.
was for. Like, I think as doctors, we get traumatized in our training. And so we're like,
Yeah.
we need an outlet.
Yeah, it was the place where I can go. I didn't have to abide by a schedule, so I didn't start jujitsu until after medical training because it was like I don't want to be sort of tied to somebody else's schedule, and also I didn't want to talk to people because it was like I wasn't ready to talk. I just wanted to be in my own head and
Yeah.
reflect, I guess,
Yeah. Weight
so to
training
speak.
is definitely an individual sport. You can
Yeah.
definitely, which is why I'm an introvert. And so it definitely appealed to me. I'm like, oh, I don't have to talk to
Oh.
anybody else.
I've been talking to people all freaking day. I'm
Yeah.
done talking to
Yeah.
people.
So let's fast forward just a little
Yeah.
bit. So now you're a doctor,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And you're a busy doctor.
Yeah.
So what's evolved in your routine over the past, let's just say 10 years? Like what would you hold as being like a foundation that's sacred compared to stuff that you were doing in ditching?
Gosh, I would say I'm still at minimum resistance training at least 3 times a week.
Right.
Like I guess that's always just been a constant thing. The thing that I have backed off of in the last 10 years
Cardio.
is actually the trying to push my physique. So dieting down, like fat loss dieting has definitely sort of like my desire to do that has died off. I'm more into maintaining my muscle these days versus like I'm trying to really build something. It's like I go in the gym, I like get something done, I do full body workouts and I'm done. So back in the day, I think at most times I was training 4 to 6 days a week, somewhere on average. And I was really doing a
Lot.
bodybuilding type of, split where I really wanted to emphasize body parts and all this other stuff. And now I'm just like, I want to get in. I'm going to do what I need to do and then, leave. It's going to be challenging. But it's not going to be like, oh, today's chest day because I really need to,
Hmm.
really want to grow my upper body.
Yeah.
Did you ever get into like powerlifting or any bodybuilding competitions?
Powerlifting, yes, that was probably the thing where I decided that if I was gonna be struggling with this whole weight stuff and being overweight, I'm gonna be as strong as possible. So I'm gonna do powerlifting. So I did my first powerlifting meet in my first year of medical school, like the summer between first and second year, where you're like, I get my one chance at freedom.
Yes.
Uh,
Your last chance.
Right, exactly, exactly. And then my last powerlifting meet, I was a second year family medicine resident. I had mapped that meet out, I think the first when I was an intern, because I realized that there was this particular block was just going to be easier. So I was going to take that month to kind of prep into the meet, do the meet, and then that was it.
Did you do that yourself or did you hire a coach?
I hire coaches. And this was before like the advent of apps. So I had a lot of I had a coach who was also a power lifter and also a physician as well. And so I felt
Oh, that's
like,
cool.
at the very least, every week I could just send in my weight and just complain about how this whole process sucks.
You could say, I'm busy, resident, and I'm still trying to do this. That's impressive, by the way, to be doing that. Like I said, I got into fitness stuff I was done with I wasn't attending. The only thing I could handle during residency was maybe running, and that was, far between. So I never knew this. It's funny because as physicians, we are taught that we, need to be healthy,
Hmm.
and it's depending on your training, and everyone's different. I understand that, especially when it comes to like what that means.
Yeah.
But sometimes we're not really given specifics. I remember in medical school having so it's funny that you're talking about undergrad. I ate Taco Bell every single day in undergrad, and I knew I wanted to be a doctor, right? I did not think twice about that health metric at all. And so, in fact, I ate there every day, and the people that served me knew my order, so they just had it prepared for me before I even got there. Um,
I'm not gonna say anything.
and
That's
Wait, what was your order? What was your go-to?
it was two soft tacos. Yeah, two soft tacos with sour cream. That was
that's not
That's
terrible.
not terrible though. Like,
Listen, when I used to go to Taco Bell, it'd be once in a blue moon. But like I didn't like fast food at all. I don't know. Something
mhm.
maybe my parents ingrained that in me when I was little. I don't know.
Yeah.
But when I went to Taco Bell, I got a chicken chalupa supreme, a Crunchwrap
Hmm.
supreme,
Yep.
an extra crunchy taco. I went in like it was
Yeah.
like $15, but you got a ton
Yeah.
of food for $15.
Yeah, it's like $40 now if you got ordered all of those
I
things. It's
know, it's
insane to
true.
think
It got
about.
way more expensive. But like even in medical school, I was a terrible eater. I mean, with as much studying as we had to
Oh
do. And
gosh.
I think it's interesting um how genetically blessed I was at the time. I maintained the weight, but I ate shit every single day. And I didn't think twice about it. I didn't think, I'm going to be a physician one day sitting with patient, and my choices should probably reflect what I'm trying to preach to them, right? This thought process never crossed my mind, only because I was able to get away with it. And so it never occurred to me that maybe I should actually be practicing what I preach. And so it wasn't until later, until my own body started to change, where I was like, I need to do something about this. Wait, my metabolism is starting to slow down, and now I'm starting to gain weight, right? And so it wasn't until then. But for you, that happened so early, and you had this evolution. And I'm glad that you're able to like keep up those hobbies. It's so difficult when you're a busy physician.
Well, I was going to say this
Yeah.
at the end, but you kind of brought it up now to where you look at both experiences, right? Not that one person is a better doctor than the other,
Yeah.
but she can relate, Dr. C can relate
I was just gonna
to
say, yeah.
patients and understand where they're coming from because she struggled with it. You, genetically blessed, you
for
didn't have an issue.
a few years.
Yeah.
Let's just say
Yeah.
for a few years until it all catches up with you at some point. And those choices, I think even like with the patients I see, it's not your body may look thin but
Mhm.
if you don't put in the work, the resistance training, the stuff that you need to do, especially as a woman, um, because a lot of women don't resistance train, and I think that's unfortunate. And later on, it will affect you. And we talk about longevity a lot in medicine. I
Yeah.
think all physicians are longevity doctors, right? We all
Yeah.
want to give our patients better
Yeah.
quality of life. And I think that's such a huge deal, right? Um, you may be genetically blessed, but the pillars of what it is to have a healthy body and a functioning body that will give you the quality of life takes some work, it takes some effort. So that being said, at what point in this whole journey as a practicing physician were you like um, found out about GLPs and made a decision to
Oh,
potentially
yeah.
try these?
Yeah, was working with a physician at the time during medical training. So I've been on multiple medications for weight management, and I've tried to prescribe Saxenda, you know, as early as residency. For weight management, it never got approved, so it kind of went nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And like Saxenda back in the liraglutide was not that great
Yeah, it
in
wasn't.
term. It
Yeah,
wasn't anything
yeah,
special, and
right.
it's a daily injection, so it's like I'll just use it or for type 2 diabetes, Trulicity or whatever the brand name was called. So I didn't really think anything of it. I've been on multiple medications off label for weight management, Contrave, which is naltrexone and bupropion.
Yeah.
Uh, bu- Bupropion
Did
by
that work for
itself.
you?
No, I got like severe hives. I was doing my internal medicine rotation at the hospital and just like these giant welts,
Oh
like
no.
all over, like trying not to scratch my skin off as I'm in this gross, hospital with God knows what type of bacteria, in there. And then bupropion didn't really work a whole ton and made me a lot more anxious and like snippy
Hmm.
and Topamax.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
yeah,
You really did try some off-label stuff.
yeah, terrible.
Yeah.
The word forgetfulness was insane, so that was just whatever. And my physician at the time recommended Wegovy. I think in 2021, I was a sports medicine fellow at in Vegas, and I actually said no for you know, the for various reasons. Biggest one was probably because of ego. Two, the the school insurance was terrible, so it didn't cover it. I was going to pay $1,000 for these
Oh, as a
injections, and
poor resident too, that's not
yeah,
conducive
oh
to
my
anything.
God, oh God, and that I remember I took a pay cut to go because I was doing community family medicine,
Oh,
and then I
geez.
went into academia, like an academic program for sports, and I was like, I looked at the I looked at the salary, and I was like,
Yeah.
why are we here?
Yeah, that's crazy.
And so, yeah, I sat on it and then it was in the middle of COVID. So I was dealing with trying to be a fellow as COVID was, sort of
Oh, geez.
evolving.
Yeah. Were
So
you
I
in
said no.
Vegas during COVID then?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So I didn't decide yes until I'd say a year out of medical training because I was in Michigan, finally moved to Michigan and, was just
Did
thinking
you,
about it.
with your body habitus at the time, just give us an idea. Where were you at? Like you're obviously very active. You were keeping up
Yeah.
resistance training and stuff like that. Were you still, I mean, in undergrad, you mentioned you were 200 pounds.
Yeah.
What was your body habitus at the time with your own efforts, I guess, of trying to keep weight off?
So getting down, so I think around the time that I started, I must have been around like 155, somewhere between 155 and
So
165.
your efforts got you pretty far. I mean, that's
Yeah, yeah.
impressive.
The
Yeah.
the 200 to 165, 170 range is fairly easy. Like not a big deal. That deficit was just, fine, I can maintain. It's anything under trying to get down to 150 has always been a hurdle. And then anything lower than that at 411 has just been like, oh God, it just goes up exponentially.
Yeah.
So
And you were
for,
at the
yeah.
time were you dieting, or were you I guess not dieting, but maybe just being cognizant.
Mindful.
Yeah, mindful of what your um diet consisted of.
Yes, yes. Um, I've always sort of kind of either tracked my food, kind of, portioned my food out, mindful of the scale. The scale was at this point a neutral kind of tool for me. So it was
Right.
just like,
You weren't
and then
afraid of it.
no,
Yeah.
no. But yeah, I was around somewhere between 165, 170. Like I was always resistance training, but I was still snoring. Sometimes my joints hurt. And yeah, I just kind of felt really tired and sluggish.
Was that the final push to say, okay, I'm gonna actually try one of these GLP medications?
It was seeing how when bodybuilders diet down and their like food noise, their fixation on food, always having these ruminating thoughts about like I can't wait till, get this cheat meal or whatever. And I
Yeah.
just remember really at one point just thinking about it. It's like, well, if this isn't like just a willpower thing and there's something else going on, maybe I am just dealt with like a crappier set of genetic cards as far as like this brain thing goes, because I'm having about as much food noise as a bodybuilder, like at the tail end of their diet, but I am not lean by nowhere close to being lean. And I have spent decades tracking, doing this, hiring coaches, and doing some self reflection on the things that like I could control. And so I'm like, how much of this do I really want to grind out? Because it also affected my work. I'm always thinking about food and like pretending it's not there and then trying to be a physician, trying to be present, but I can't because I keep thinking about food. So that was kind of the final straw. And I was like, look, what's the worst thing that can happen? You've been on much crappier medications that don't work for you. Um, you know,
Yeah. So then you were like, let's give it a try.
Yeah, I was
And
like, fine. I was like, fine, let's just give this a try.
I love it. I love it.
And then week 4 hits, and you're like, oh, okay, now
Yeah.
wait a minute.
Well, well
What was
then.
your, so talk about your experience. What changed? What I see so many patients that see it as like giving in to something that like it's almost like they gave up. And I try to explain to them that that's not the case at all. So tell us about your experience.
Yeah, I definitely felt when I started the medication, I felt like I was giving up. But that was just my ego talking. It really felt like a light bulb went off in my head. And I just remember thinking about the way I interacted with food. Now there is actual space in my brain that's quiet. Like that's probably the closest thing I can describe to the experience. So I didn't realize how loud the chatter was as far as appetite, hunger, food, my thoughts on food were until I started the medication. And now I can just like sit down and read a literature article, or I can be present at a meal and talk to the people at the table because I'm not like thinking about like, oh my God, I'm hungry, I'm starving. When is this food gonna get here? Oh my God, I have to chew 20 times, make sure like, I don't overeat myself. Like I don't want to do all these like food rule things that like all the fitness influencers tell you to do to try and like willpower your way through it. And then the guilt because
That
it's not working, like there's still
yeah.
so like I still screwed this up, so it's my fault.
Yeah.
But yeah, it made space in my brain for all these other things.
That's 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 so crazy to me because I mean, I guess as somebody who doesn't know what that's like, how much of that brain power is used up by thinking about all these like minute details that you have to control, right? And that's so I can't even imagine what that's like, but I'm sure there's so many patients that struggle with that, and they probably don't even realize that that's really what's happening in their day to day, right? And
Yeah.
that could actually be silenced.
Yeah, I will say that, like, I totally understand from bringing yourself to stage, right? And you finish your meal and you're already like, when am I having my next meal? What am I having? And
Yeah.
it's like you just finished eating and you're still thinking about your next meal. And that carried on even like after competing, that
Yeah.
carries with you. Because I
Yeah.
know I dealt with it for a very long time. And it was even like I like to enjoy Saturdays, and my Saturdays were built around food. Like I want to go
Mm-hmm.
here to eat. Then like I'm already thinking like, what am I going to do for dinner? And it's like, wait,
Yep.
you just enjoyed a
8.
lunch. Yeah, take a step back and like appreciate what you just had, and you're already trying to figure out what you can have, and then where you're gonna go, and how what you're gonna eat, and you're looking at the menu, and it's like there's so much food noise there. So I could definitely understand to a percent, right? Not
Yeah.
fully,
Yeah.
but I've been there with that food noise, and it consumes you. It really
Mm-hmm.
does. Yeah.
Yeah, that's yeah, thank you for sharing that because I think so many people can likely relate to that food noise and knowing that it could go away as a possibility. Like that's something that you can't willpower your way through, I don't think. I think that obesity and even weight loss, weight gain in general are just things that are so far more complex than we realize. And so um, I think for somebody to say that they're a patient to say I'm giving up, it's not. It's that you've tried
Tried
everything.
everything, and
Yeah.
it's like you can't help that you were dealt those cards to where you deal with stuff a little bit harder than other people. And with social media and how much we compare each other to everybody else's journey and not worry about our own journey, it just uh, it it amplifies that total noise of
Yeah.
body shaming yourself, not fueling yourself the right way because you're afraid that you might gain a little weight on the scale,
Yeah.
feeling like you're a failure because your body's not responding the way another person's body is responding. Then you have these drugs come in, and it's like, here's a gift to you to finally help you that deals with stuff that's so much harder than these other people. And you flip it to the negative perspective and you're like, well, now I'm cheating. No, you're getting
No.
help. You're getting the help that you need.
No.
So why don't you tell us sort of like when you first started using it, what did you start to experience? How did you know this stuff was working? And then like sort of what you do now with it.
Yeah. The biggest part of the rate limiting step with all of this stuff was the calories and then also the hunger levels. So I had everything else in place. I had the resistance training. I had the protein forward diet. All of my meals had like a protein, a vegetable or carb, fiber, healthy, carbohydrates. I was active. I was getting steps in. So this was literally it.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking about food. I could actually just sit down and do my work and like, lunchtime comes around and I'm like, oh, it's lunchtime versus it's 10 o'clock. When is lunch going to get here? Sort of, my whole mentality around food shifted. However, I will say that I now, because of that, were days where 3 p.m. would roll around. I would end up with a headache. I'd feel a little lightheaded. And then I'd look down at the clock and be like, oh crap, it's
Mhm.
three
I need to
o'clock.
eat
I
something.
need to eat something. Like, I
Mhm.
can't do this. So it changes from the hunger being this drive. You have a different set of problems now, which are still problems that need to be, addressed, which is now I really need to make sure that I don't do this. I don't end up starving myself because that is a very common thing that I also see with people is 3 p.m., 5 p.m. rolls around. They've maybe eaten a handful of blueberries and they called it a meal. That is not a meal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they wonder, like, why am I lightheaded? Why am I, spacey? All of this stuff. So I had to start making sure that I, set an alarm or have some scheduled, meals. And gosh, I knew it was working just off the bat. I would just the way I approached, the silence in my head was just so there, so present that I just like that. That's the only way I can describe it. Just
That's cool.
thinking about like, oh, is this what skinny people must go through? Like, is this how skinny people live? Wow, this is amazing. Sign me up. Because it's really absolutely, it feels so free to not be like driven by food 24/7. It's just a small part of my entire day.
Yeah. That's not so. How do you balance that now? Like, what are pillars that you still are like, these things need to be done? If especially as somebody who's experiencing it, what do you tell your patients? Like, what are things that they need to maintain?
They're non-negotiables.
Yeah.
Non-negotiables, resistance training. Like if I had to pick one, whether it's being on this GLP-1 medication or not, resistance training is just, man, the sooner
Your
you
daily
start, the better.
vitamin.
Yeah. Your 50, 60, 70, 80-year-old self is going to thank you. There's just so many benefits. And it's not to say that cardio is bad. I understand that people have lives to live and families to feed. If I had to pick one, thing to do, that would be the thing. And I guess also making sure to eat a protein forward diet. And I know there's been a bit of a pushback on social media about like, we should, like protein is so overhyped. But I still see people who you look at their daily calorie intake and it's a whole lot of carbs and fats and not a whole lot of protein. So,
Mhm.
making sure that you have a lean protein, you eat a fruit or a vegetable, and usually carbs and fats fill themselves in. So that's why I usually don't like spend a whole lot of time yapping about it versus protein and fiber.
Hmm. Well,
Gotcha.
protein and fiber, that's the king and queen of diet.
Right.
I love it. And do you still
Yeah.
do jujitsu?
I do. I do. I do jujitsu 2 days a week,
Nice.
and yeah, I still keep up with it. It's more of, I really love the environment. I love the gym out here in Philadelphia, and I just love the people there. So it's been fun going on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Nice,
I
nice.
think you touched on something very important before when you brought up the person who has a handful of blueberries and then it's 5 o'clock and they're
Yeah.
like, oh, I feel like shit. Like I got to eat
Yeah.
something. There's going to be people that don't have the nutrition awareness and the food awareness to actually understand that, right? Which is
Yeah.
why it is important that if someone who's listening and wants to take any GLP or they qualify for it, it is important that if you feel like you are that person to have someone in your corner, right,
Yeah.
to be able to guide you and maybe help you with your nutrition to where you are having protein at every meal. You are setting a timer, or maybe they shoot you a
Yeah.
reminder to make sure you have your lunch or whatever. Because I think it's really important because what happens is you have people like that and they are losing weight, but they look exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
What's going
Mm-hmm.
on? Well, because you're losing muscle mass at the same rate that you're losing body fat. So, yeah, you're a smaller person, but you're in the same body composition, which actually makes you less healthy.
Yeah.
So, it's really important, those pillars that you said, which is
Yeah.
the resistance training to help at least maintain muscle mass, not even thinking about building, but at least maintain it.
Yeah.
Driving forward with the protein, right? Keep yourself in a positive nitrogen balance. The
Yeah.
fiber alone to help with satiety, but you're not going to really need satiety. But what else comes with fiber? You have all those
Constipation.
vitamins and
Yeah.
that too. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't even think of that. Yeah. I was going to say you have all those vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients. And you're like, wait, constipation. Yeah.
Constipation, because that's another thing they
That's
complain
a
about
very
too.
real effect.
Yes.
That's like, oh, I haven't pooped. And I'm like, what goes in must come out, right? So if
Yeah.
not a whole lot's going in, not a whole lot's going to be coming out.
And
So
that's due to the
yeah.
delayed gastric emptying, correct?
Yeah, it is. There is that, but then the first thing I do ask is like, what did you eat today? And it's
Yeah.
like a handful of blueberries. And I'm like, well, yeah, no crap, you didn't like
You're
poop
like,
because
no
there's no.
shit, no pun intended.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, um, so and then just thinking, and I get it, especially very early on, the food noise goes away entirely, and so you may have to supplement with things like protein powders, ready to drink shakes. So I think early on I was subsisting a lot more. Like I'd have maybe one or two whole meals and then I would make sure to have shakes sort of, sparsed
Get
in
your
between,
protein. Yeah.
get the protein in
Yeah.
or have smaller meals that were a little bit more like calorie dense. Because nowadays I'm eating a whole lot of vegetables, a whole lot of fiber. And so I think people kind of are like, wow, I didn't realize you can make such huge meals, while on a GLP-1. And I'm like, well, I'm in a different spot right now than I
Yeah.
was even a year or two ago.
Mhm.
And it's not always cut and dry. And what I do is not what anybody else is going to do. Everybody's experience is going to vary.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I will say this. I watched your videos. You're definitely keeping your strength up. I saw you do pull-ups and I was like, damn, girl. It's impressive.
Oh, thank you.
Um, I love that you are still resistance training. I think that's so important, especially for females that are kind of in. You mentioned you're in your 40s. That is
Yep.
kind of the stage of where some females will start in perimenopause, and like
Hmm.
resistance training is, like you said, a non-negotiable. Everyone should be resistance training, but as a female, I understand that more on the female side, and how I grew up, it was not a thing. Cardio was a thing,
Yep.
and not necessarily resistance training. I think now it's getting more popular and more people are doing it, but I kind of wonder, I talked to my own mom about it, and she's in her 70s, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this is very important for you.
Just grab a band.
Yeah,
Grab a band.
and you
Yeah.
can start at any age.
Yeah.
And so, but I think for our generation, it's very important, because if you want to be really effective, now's the time. Now, better than waiting.
I thought it was such a cool evolution just to kind of see, because even like when I'm growing up, like that with cardio
Yeah.
bunnies was the females, right?
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
like they were afraid to lift because they didn't want to look like a man. And then you had women that started lifting and they didn't look like a man. They just looked really toned, for lack of a better term, right?
Right. Right.
And I was
Right.
like, wait a minute. So then more people tried it, and now more people tried it, and now it's like this big thing. And I was like, finally, like
Yeah.
you just need a few people to try it and show that like it's not a bad thing. Like it's not,
Yeah.
and then people will catch on. So I'm very glad it caught on. And now we're just trying to really make sure, because we have a few older clients, a decent amount of older clients,
Yeah.
that we're making sure, like, hey, like if you can't get
He
your
calls
three
them
days,
clients. I call them patients.
yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah.
if you can't get your 3 days in at a minimum, whatever, like you
Two.
still try to get that 1 day per week, right? If you're sick, take a break,
Yeah.
right? Relax,
Yeah.
rest, recover. But even that 1 day
One
will do
day.
something for you.
Yeah, there were times during neuroscience block in med school, I was that 1 day a week was all I could give for an hour,
I was
and
just gonna
most of
say
the
that's the
yeah,
toughest time.
I
It's
hated
time.
that block, and here I am thinking about neuroscience and the biology of appetite, and it's giving me like I'm like, oh, now I finally have a reason to really like dig in and get over my kind of phobia of neuroscience was a terrible block. I like barely skated by
Oh,
just
I
because
did
the
too.
brain is
I
just,
think
yeah.
we all did.
Mhm.
Still
Like the brain all
remember.
looks the
It's
same. It all
traumatizing.
looks the
I'm telling
same.
you, med school's traumatizing.
At least with the heart, you have the four different chambers. Things
Oh
look
yeah.
different. It all made sense. Like you just, you can point to a part of the brain and it's like it all the gray matter looks the same. Like I don't know what to tell you, man. It was a lot of memorization. It was,
I was just gonna say, like, it's the most. I felt like I was a pretty good memorizer,
yeah.
and that was the most challenging time.
Yeah.
For a minute before I started, I was like, "Oh, I want to be a neuroradiologist," and after that block was done, I'm like, "I will never be a neuroradiologist." Any neuroradiologists out there? I admire you.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Hats off to you guys, man. I can't hang.
Yeah, that's more brain power than I can handle.
I feel a little bit out of this conversation. I'm gonna drag us back in because I don't know what the hell you guys are talking about. So, so let's go to this question. What do you wish your pre-GLP self knew about balancing meds with hard work in the fitness realm?
That appetite is a biology problem, not a willpower problem. There are very hormones, the brain, neurons, receptors are all very powerful and good at what they do. And for some of us, are just dealt with a different hand, and it is okay. You are not broken. There are going to be solutions coming down the line, but if you can optimize your lifestyle now to set you up for these medications, there are things that you can still do that are within your control. Resistance training, learning how to cook, nourishing your body. The calories, hunger, appetite stuff we can deal with when it gets here. But yeah, I think it would have saved me a lot of frustration, a lot of tears, moving down the line. But it was, I accept that those things are what made me who I am today.
I was just gonna say that that hardship built character in you, and you
Yeah.
wouldn't be the same person today that if you didn't go through that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Crystal. We so much appreciate this conversation. I think more patients can relate to you. I think more patients need to know that our own physicians often take these medications because they are helpful, and that it's not a sign that you gave up or you didn't try hard enough. It is just a little tool to help out, as most medications should be. And so thank you for sharing such a personal experience with all of our listeners.
Yeah, it's great. And I want to be respectful of your time. And honestly,
Yeah.
talking about all this food and food noise, I'm getting hungry.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell our listeners where they could find you, your social medias, and if you have any newsletters or anything like that, just put it here, just say it, and then I'll put it in the show notes too.
Yeah, right now, I am in a state of transition and rebuilding. All of my social media stuff is just on Instagram for the time being. So Dr.Christle, Christle, is where you can find it. I have the free ebook, Beginner's Guide to GLP-1s that kind of talks about, the lifestyle stuff and how to set things up.
Nice.
So if anybody's interested, they can sign up through the link in my bio.
Also, if you follow her, she posts her meals.
Oh,
They always look really good.
Learn to cook.
breakfast, the breakfast. Yeah, I'm in my aesthetic kind of era where instead of just putting a day's worth of macros into a Tupperware container and just like grazing in the hospital, like, you know what? I'm gonna set a plate. I'm gonna,
Yeah.
make it look kind of nice, at
I
least
love
for
it.
one meal. Thank
I'm
you.
like, oh, that looks really good.
Is that a Michelin star grade?
It's just egg whites.
Make them look good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We so much appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
So on behalf of Balanced Bodies, we just want to say thank you for joining us on this episode of the Balanced Bodies Blueprint.
We are committed to bringing valuable content. And if you enjoyed today's episode, we'd greatly appreciate it if you can take a moment and like it and leave a 5-star review.
On Apple, just go to the show, scroll down to the bottom and rate it there. If you're on Spotify, go to the show's page, click the 3 dots, and you can rate it there as well.
And if you believe in the power of knowledge, share this episode on your social media to try and get the information out there to as many people as possible.
And as you navigate your own path towards better health, remember that Balanced Bodies is forever in your corner. See you all next week.
The podcast content may include discussions of medical topics and health-related information. However, the information provided should not be considered exhaustive or complete, and it should not be relied upon as a substitute for professional medical advice or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare providers with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment.